What up, dog? Good morning and welcome to another episode of A.M. Opinionated. It's your man, Nate Goose the God, aka Scrap, aka Momo Amuata Mbonisi. And then, sometimes I'm just plain old Damon, you know. Uh same old me. Now, um first, I would like to point out that from now on AM Opinionated, as if you did not already know, uh basically AM Opinionated is going to be uh what I am going to call Random Topic Tuesday. So it's going to be random streams of thought, or rather not really random, well, yeah, kind of random streams of thought, but random streams of knowledge that I have, because like I've said a number of times before, I'm just trying to get what I got up here out there. So that's my goal, that's my purpose, to get what I have up here out there. And then in addition to that, I'm trying to put some more up there, which is really why I have guests, so I can learn something. I am a lifelong learner, so there's not a time in my life that I'm not going to be intrigued by things and be on the quest to learn new and or different things, or add to the knowledge that I already have. You're never too old to learn. So that is what Tuesdays will be. It'll be random streams of knowledge, uh, things that I pick up, things that I learn, and in a lot of instances, things that I remember. Because now who runs into this? You learned something years ago, but don't really use it, to where it just goes to the back of your mind. And then something comes up that reignites that thing that you knew, to make you refresh yourself on it, right? So you refresh yourself on this particular theme, knowledge based point that you have, and then rock with it, and it comes right back to the forefront of your mind, right? So you go into it. Um, that's not necessarily what this morning's episode is about. This is about something that I've always been interested in, and a lot of times, fields of knowledge and or study for myself come as a question that I ask myself that I can't understand, don't know, or um, can't speak about intelligently. So if I don't know something, can't speak about something intelligently, which means that I have a limited knowledge base of it, and you know, uh, I just won't go in depth about it, or I just, you know, don't have a clue. We never thought about it. Um, those are the things that I tend to research. So there have been, like, I used to have all out debates with people about like really about just the states of Kansas and Missouri. So Kansas and Missouri have been um at odds for real since the Civil freaking War. You know what I'm saying? And so I know back in the 90s, this is really all I can talk about. In the 1990s, I gotta specify that, because there was feuding and bickering going on between the two states in the 1890s. So yes, there was still new age feuds that was going on 100 years later. You know, I remember very clearly, times to where um, Missouri dudes knew better than to go to Kansas City, Kansas, to go to Wyandotte, to go anywhere over there without weapons. Weapons. You better not go to Wyandotte without no weapon. Go to man, what was it? Go to Indian Springs without a weapon if you want to, and you got Missouri plates. Mm-mm. It wasn't gonna be fun. Uh, I know there was a specific time me and my cousins was at. There was a gas station across the street from Indian Springs Mall in Kansas City, Kansas, or yeah, I forget where Indian Springs was, but but yeah, it's dudes walking up. They see that we got Missouri plates. We at the gas station, and it's guys that got like whole AKs trying to hide them underneath their coats, trying to creep up on the car, and we see them through the rear view, and you know, all hell broke loose. Uh, and the same went whenever there was Kansas plates over here. It just didn't rock on either side. If you were in Bannister Mall, or if you was in the Landon Mall, or any of those old hangout spots from the 90s, you know, especially say if you was at the Circle in Swope Park, it was just gonna be a bad time for you, you know. But that was the immaturity of youth. Also, that was the ignorance of history, as to why we did that. We didn't even understand that, especially as young black men, that we were perpetuating a racist front between Kansas and Missouri that had been going on for at least a century, you know. So that is kind of what I want to talk about today. I'll go in more in depth, hopefully next Tuesday, about the whole Kansas Missouri thing, because one of the main things that I looked up years and years ago was like the inception of these two states as states, because that was one of the main arguments. Man, Kansas was a state before Missouri. No, Missouri was a state before Kansas. Missouri was a state before Kansas. However, there's a reason why we have a Kansas City, Missouri, and a Kansas City, Kansas, and it's hopefully gonna be more intriguing to you after I lay this down. So here's the thing. One of the things that I did not know. Let me back up. Let me back up. So I said that a lot of things come from a question that I have that I'll ask myself. The question that I asked in this particular time frame was a stream of thought of questions that I'd been asking myself on similarly related topics, which were, because there was the big thing about there being a lot of racist monuments, racist statues, racist this and racist that in Missouri as a whole, but in Kansas City more specifically, you know. And so I began to ask myself, I began to gain knowledge about the fact that there were, because of the Daughters of the Confederacy and wanting to show black people that even though the South lost the war and the Confederacy was the losers, that white supremacy still reigned. And again, if you do not understand racism and white supremacy, what it is and how it functions, everything else that you believe or think that you understand will only confuse you, you know? So the Confederacy lost the war. The Confederacy, the South, lost the Civil War, right? Where in history do you know that the losers of a war are commemorated, memorialized, uh, any of that? I'll wait. Can't think of none. The Civil War is one of the only time frames to where in a war, the losers are just as decorated as the victors. You know, how is that? that uh like so you got uh the Lakers playing whoever in the championship, you know, and the Lakers win, but everybody on the losing team get a shoe deal too. Where they do that at? Where is it that the losers get a commercial? You know, they don't do that because it's not supposed to happen. Now, how is it that the Confederacy ended up with a Nike commercial? Here's how it happened. The Daughters of the Confederacy sought out to make sure that we understood, black people, understood that white supremacy still reigned supreme and that it was still the law of the land. And so they began to make sure that Confederate soldiers and generals and really more the higher ups were commemorated as the names of schools, roads, streets, bridges. They had statues erected, the whole hook, you know, the whole hook. So when I learned, the thing that always jumped out to me was they named schools. They named schools. So I'm like, hold up now. I need to go see if my elementary school that I was so very fond of and loved so much, if it was named after a Confederate. Thank goodness it was not. Um, John J. Pershing was not a Confederate. Uh, he, was not a Confederate. Thank goodness. Uh, so, because I really want to buy that school. Um, and I'm going to change the name of it still. I mean, no disrespect to John Blackjack Pershing, but nah, that's gonna have to be I know Umar got like Frederick Douglass Academy, so I'm gonna have to name it something else, you know, uh Malcolm X Institute or something, but it's not gonna stay named after nobody that ain't black. Uh so the question that I currently asked myself was this: because of the fact that there are so many Confederate soldiers who were named after schools and streets and buildings and whatnot, I had to ask myself, Jackson, what Jackson is Jackson County named for? I know it ain't Michael, Tito, or Jermaine. So what is the Jackson? Who is the Jackson that Jackson County was named for? And unfortunately, um, it was as I suspected. However, until I researched even further, what I expected originally was not as bad as what I found out eventually. So, yes, Jackson County, Missouri was named, or rather is named, for Andrew Jackson, the seventh president of the United States, who was, by most accounts, probably the worst slave owner of all of the presidents. Like, they say that he owned up to 161 slaves and was brutal to them, was absolutely brutal. This dude was born in poverty, you know, and ended up falling into the slave trade to where it was cotton that needed to be picked. And so, white privilege allowed him to kidnap some black people, force them into chattel slavery, and create his fortune to where he died a wealthy man, right? He lived a wealthy man, on the backs of slaves doing all of his free labor, right? Now, this dude was originally from Tennessee. And yes, there are uh, Jackson streets in Jackson County and a city named Jackson that's named after Andrew Jackson. However, Andrew Jackson had no tie nor affiliation to Kansas City, Missouri. So why the hell was this racist, brutal slave owner the name of a whole county in Missouri? Like, Jackson County is more than Kansas City. A lot of people think that Jackson County only spans to Kansas City, that Jackson County and Kansas City are just synonymous. No, you got to understand, the first courthouse that was ever built in this area was built in Independence, right? It was built in Independence. And so Jackson County spans uh, all the way out to Grandview. That's all Jackson County. So you got Kansas City, Independence, Raytown, Grandview. All of these areas are all Jackson County, right? So it's like, why are we do people not know the history of Andrew Jackson, or are we just looking at the fact that he was a president of the United States and deserved? No, it wasn't even all that. It was the fact that, unfortunately, and you'll find this out if you do some history into the state of Missouri. Missouri was actually the 12th Confederate state. Missouri was part of the Confederacy within its inception into the Union, right? So it came as part of the Louisiana Purchase, right? Missouri came in as a slave state. It was a slave state. And Maine came in as a free state, right? And so as a slave state, Missouri fought for the South. So if you made it to Missouri and you thinking you was in the North, wrong answer, negatory. You were not. Better slide your ass over to Kansas. So that is why you had, and we used to have like debates about this, but the debates was about basketball. We would debate about the Jayhawks. And actually, that's how I found out. That's originally how I found out that Missouri was a slave state and Kansas was actually the free state, because because I was trying to drive dudes that was Jayhawk fans. That was my whole reason. So I had to look up what a Jayhawk was. And a Jayhawk wasn't no damn bird. They made it they made up this imaginary bird and called it a Jayhawk, but the Jayhawks were actually the people that were abolitionists that fought against the Independence Boys in Missouri. It was like gangs back in the 1800s, and they fought against each other. You had Missouri, that was a slave state, and that's actually when I found out Missouri was a slave state too. I just didn't know that I don't know why I didn't put it together when I was younger, that they were a slave state and thus they would fight for the Confederacy, and Kansas was a free state and fought for the Union. Yeah, I know why, because I really didn't care back then. So now you have this great awakening, especially by Black people. You have this great awakening into saying, well, this is now racist, and that is now racist, and this is now it was always racist. It was just racism looking you in your face, and you was walking around with your eyes closed and didn't recognize it or realize it. But it was always racist. It never was not racist, And so you had to come to that understanding. And if you did not come to that understanding, then it wasn't something wrong with the statue that had been there for 100 years. There was a problem with you. So it's about education. If you don't educate yourself on these things that stare you in the face every day, then you can't be upset about its presence. just because you were unaware of what it meant, you know. Um, like Frederick Douglass said, some know the value of education by having it. I know its value by not having it, you know, and that's real, you know. That is a very real statement to learn about the value of education because you don't have it. You know, you can see what you don't know. You may not understand what you don't know, but you can see that you don't know it. And so to look at certain statues around the Kansas City area and not understand cemeteries, Forest Hill, cemetery, like even in the there's another cemetery, I think it's on like 23rd Street, you know, it has both Union and Confederate soldiers buried there, right? And it was put there by the federal government. Missouri didn't have no say in it. It's like federal government's gonna put a cemetery here, and we're gonna bury the dead of the winners and the losers both together. Now, where the hell they do that at? So, yeah, and you'll also understand if you research the history of Kansas City, Missouri, just how ironic it is. You know what I'm saying? Like all the violence that has gone on down in Westport, especially back in the day. You know, we used to call Westport the Wild Wild West, and it really freaking was. Like there was whole battles fought at Westport. It was literally called the Battle of Westport. Who'd have thunk it? You know, that the shootouts that immature and ignorant young men were having back in the day and still having to this day, again, have been going on for 100 some odd years. Who'd have thunk it? Kansas City, Missouri for you. You know, like that old commercial you say right after Schoolhouse Rock. The more you know. Um, so that's it for this morning's episode of A.M. Opinionated. I am, as always, multi-named, and I am, as always, going to say support small and black businesses. They need you now more than ever. Corona is killing more than a world population is killing small businesses. So remember that. And also, seize the moment. You might not make it through the whole day. We live in a series of moments. So it's these moments that count. So cherish the moment, especially when you get those goosebumps within a certain moment. You know, that means something real is happening within that moment. So pay attention to that moment, cherish it, try to recreate it as many more times throughout the day as you possibly can. It's your man. Peace. I'm out.